Captain America the Winter Soldier is an interesting movie for a number of reasons. I think the most interesting aspect of it is it's the example of a movie that became obsolete within a year of it being released. It's incredibly anachronistic and kind of captures a point in history that just bears almost no relation to how things are today. The world has changed so much since this film came out. It kind of seems frankly bizarre. Whether or not that's because it was planned for a long time before it was released or whatever it was, but I just find it interesting. Now, the elephant in the room on this is this film only came out 2 years ago. This is 2015. But I've rewatched the movie a couple times just because it's on TV so much. And my father's a big fan, so if he's watching it, I'll sit down and I'll watch it with him. It's an example of a movie that gets worse every time I watch it. And I think, to be honest, it wasn't a great movie. When I saw it, I gave it an 8.5. I'd probably lower that to 7.5 now, and we'll get into that as we go into the movie. This is going to be a bit long, but I have a lot more to say, and I think this is going to be a better review than a lot of my reviews, because I actually have more to say. There's movies where I just do them because I've seen them and it's fresh in my mind, and I don't necessarily have a good shtick for them, but I just want to give you something. Like maybe it's just been released, and I want to give you something while it's still in theaters, or I just feel like making it that day. This one I actually have a lot to say, though. So that's the thing. It's a film that I think gets worse every time you watch it. Now, why does it get worse? There's a lot of reasons for this. I think it's for me, I thought Avengers was complete shit. And actually, back when I used to have my own blog, Bridge of the Separator, which eventually I just took down because it was poor quality and I didn't update it. I wrote one of the very few negative reviews of the Avengers on the internet, and my blog actually got like 5,000 views in one day, up from normally 5, because of how few people disliked it. But I thought the first Avengers movie was complete shit. I also thought that the first Captain America was complete shit, and a lot of people, I think, people share my view of this. So just like there's that, there was Iron Man 2, which I'll have to do a review of. There's Iron Man 3 that was also a piece of shit. There's a lot of fucking shitty Marvel movies, and then this film came out and it was actually like competently made. It was actually not a bad movie, and I'm like, wow. This redeemed the franchise. This and Thor, which I'll also have to do a review of, because I have a lot to say about Thor, because I really like Thor. So every time I watch it, though, I'm more and more kind of that nostalgia, I guess, or kind of that happiness to finally have a non-shitty Marvel movie kept kind of coming out. But every time I watch it, I notice more and more flaws with it. I notice more and more kind of the problems with it. And it really makes me cringe, and it really seems dated. So why is this? Okay, let's go into it. The first problem with this film is the title. It's not called Captain America 2, which is something that always irritates me. It's just hard to keep track, especially in the Marvel universe, where like some of them, like there's Iron Man 2, there's Iron Man 3. I don't think Iron Man 2 or 3 have subtitles, and this is the same series, the same Marvel universe, but these movies don't have titles. The Iron Man movies have titles. We have reboots that aren't titled, like the Hulk and the Incredible Hulk, and then they have different actors in some of them, and it's just really confusing. But the big issue is the title, The Winter Soldier. Now, when I heard the title, I'm like, this is a great title, and the trailer kind of set the tone for this. A Winter Soldier, it's a bit like, you have a fair weather friend. A fair weather friend is someone who's only with you when things are good. When you have power, when you have money, there's someone who's there to kind of aggrandize themselves, to help themselves out, because they think it's going to do something for them personally. So that's a fair weather friend. And then I guess a winter friend would be someone who's there when things are bad, when you're down on your luck, when you're depressed, when you're having troubles, and they help you out. So a Winter Soldier is someone who continues to fight against impossible odds. To use a World War II reference, The Germans, the Wehrmacht, were soldiers of summer when they conquered France and Poland, and they just kind of overwhelmed them, and everything was going their way and in glory. But when they were, ironically enough, on the Eastern Front, they were winter soldiers. They were the soldiers of winter. They were fighting a losing battle in an increasingly hopeless situation to try and, I guess, kind of maintain their cause. So I said, okay, well, Captain America, you have the theme of corruption of S.H.I.E.L.D., you have the theme of him not really knowing his place anymore, but he's the eternal soldier. He's a soldier in summer, he's a soldier in winter. He's a man who sticks by his principles and continues to fight on no matter the odds, no matter where his position in the world is. So I'm like, this is a great title. But that's not what the title fucking means. The title refers to the villain of this movie who's named the Winter Soldier. I mean, how fucking lame is that? Now you can say, well, Argent, it probably means both. Okay, it may mean both. But it just ruins it. It's like if we took the movie Road to Perdition. Actually, I forget if there's a place called Perdition. If there was a place called Perdition in Road to Perdition, that would be fucking lame. Because it's supposed to be kind of like an abstract statement that kind of sums the themes of the movie. So by having the villain be Winter Soldier, that just kind of ruins all the effect of the movie. So this film took place, and I'll get into the plot in a minute. The plot's not that complicated, so we don't need that long to get through it. This film takes place after the election. Now, for those of you who don't know, maybe because you weren't politically aware, in the aftermath of the financial crisis, libertarianism enjoyed a brief renaissance. It may have been too short a season for it to attain any of its aims, but people were just so angry with government, especially given that the Republican Party, which was the party of small government, had created the most bloated government in the history of America. There was the bailouts, there's the NSA spy scandal, there was the IRS scandal, there was all this scandals, and people were extremely critical of government. And the conservative, I guess kind of the mainstream conservative message that it was about freedom versus anarchy was really big. Freedom versus totalitarianism, and that we needed a free society, and that freedom in the Constitution was paramount. And you can really see this because this whole film is basically about the surveillance state and the police state versus freedom. That really, though, is kind of anachronistic. People largely stopped caring about that once Obama won re-election, once Black Lives Matter started, once the riots started, once the knockout game started. People have kind of rapidly come to the conclusion that freedom versus control isn't the issue. Identity's the issue. Religion's the issue. This film tries to criticize and portray the surveillance state as paranoid, to portray the ends justifying the means as paranoid and against threats that don't exist. But this was before ISIS. ISIS happened shortly after this film came out. And ISIS kind of, and the Paris attacks and all this stuff, kind of makes its premise that terrorism is just a boogeyman laughable. So this film is anachronistic. It's cringy. It feels out of date 2 years after it came out. And it's a very kind of rare example of that. So let's start with the actual plots. You've heard me ramble on long enough. So this is 2 years after the events of the Avengers. That's a pretty long gap. So Steve Rogers, a.k.a. Captain America, I'll just call him Cap, works for the espionage agency S.H.I.E.L.D. under Director Nick Fury. What the fuck is S.H.I.E.L.D.? I don't know. The movies never really explain it. Is it like some kind of like international UN type agency that like controls superhumans and fights like aliens and shit? Is it an arm of the U.S. government? Is it like the CIA? They're saying it's espionage. How is Captain America a spy? He's more like special forces than a spy agency. It doesn't make any sense. Is Thor a member of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Like, what the fuck is S.H.I.E.L.D.? Never really adequately explained. I don't get it. And then they're like a spy agency, but they have a fleet of super ships that are built for just fighting armies. I don't get it. So the film starts off with Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow. I'm gonna admit this: I've never found Scarlett Johansson attractive. She looks really weird to me. I don't like her. I don't like the character Black Widow. She just kind of seems like a whore to me. This film is full of bad performances. Robert Redford is abysmal in this fucking movie. So basically, they free hostages from a shield vessel from some guy who's a mercenary. I don't know. So Rogers discovers Romanoff has another agenda to steal data from the ship, and that took precedence over the hostages. And he gets really upset about that, and he stops trusting her because her mission was different than his, and the data doesn't matter. And this is like just this kind of basic guidance systems. What if that data is like the codes for nuclear missiles? What if with that data they can like gain control of, like, I don't know, a U.S. destroyer and have it fire its missiles on a civilian area? I mean, it's just like, who cares? But no, it's organizations don't have a right to secrecy. So we cut to so the data is unable to be decrypted. Fury becomes suspicious about this program. So this program called Insight, which is basically like the NSA's thing that monitors everybody's computers and profiles everybody. So he asks Alexander Pierce, aka Robert Redford, to delay the project. So while he's driving, Fury is ambushed by assailants led by a mysterious assassin called the Winter Soldier, who's fucking lame. So Fury manages to escape and tells Rogers that that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been compromised. Who's it been compromised by? Hydra. Who the fuck is Hydra? I have no idea who the fuck Hydra is. Their motive is evil. They say, like, we were created on the basis that humanity can't be trusted with its own freedom. What the fuck does that even mean? Can't be trusted with its own freedom. So are they fascist? No, not really. Are they like Nazis? No, not really, because they have members who aren't like Aryan. Are they like mutant supremacists? Do they want order? Like, what is it that they want? They have this vague agenda. But really what they seem to me is just be a bunch of psychopaths with guns who like to kill people. Okay, that's some fucking great villains there. I mean, give them something. If they're going to be like... I don't mind having villains who are caricatures. I don't mind having villains that just represent stuff you're against. But at least give them a fucking coherent ideology. At least explain it. My villains tend to be kind of cartoonish versions in the books I write of people I don't like. But at least I try to explain their thinking. At least I try to give them motivations. There's a difference between evil and being irrational. If you deeply disagree with fascism, explain why you deeply disagree with it. Don't just fucking create this thing called Hydra and just have them use some Nazi shit. It doesn't make any sense. So Fury gets killed by the Winter Soldier, and his body gets taken away. So the next day, we'll just call him Robert Redford, who's now the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., summons Rogers to the Triskelion, which is S.H.I.E.L.D.'s headquarters. Rogers withholds the information that Fury gave him, and Pierce brands him as a fugitive hunted by Strike, which is kind of like S.H.I.E.L.D. So Rogers meets with Black Widow, and they use data in the flash drive to discover a secret S.H.I.E.L.D. bunker in New Jersey where they activate a supercomputer containing the preserved consciousness of Zola. Who the fuck Zola? I don't know. He was in the first movie that no one liked. He's one of those vaguely recognizable British actors who's in everything. So ever since S.H.I.E.L.D. was found after World War II, Hydra has secretly operated within its ranks, sowing global chaos with the objective of making humanity willing to surrender its freedom in exchange for security. What the fuck does that mean? Like, that's just... So, like, this is kind of the paranoia of both kind of libertarians and the left. They have to take away everyone's agency. This is what this movie goes. We have to be idealistic. I mean, there are no people who hate us. I mean, Robert Redford later in the movie goes, well, what if if you knew that a bunch of Pakistani terrorists were going to go into Mumbai and they were going to rape and murder your daughter, and you could flip a switch and fire a missile to stop them, would you? And the guy's like, not if it's your switch. And I'm like, so that guy would let his daughter be raped. What a fucking, like, psycho. And that's kind of the premise of this movie. They're like, oh no, there would be no terrorism, there would be no war, there would be no, like, drug cartels. But this is demonstrably untrue, because we live in a world without Hydra, and all this shit still happens. We still have drug cartels, we still have terrorism, we have ISIS, we have all this shit, and ISIS isn't behind, Hydra isn't behind any of it. So, like, it's this just unreasonable, bizarro world that we're supposed to relate to. So S.H.I.E.L.D. is run by Hydra. What's S.H.I.E.L.D., what's Hydra? I don't know. What are their ideologies? Who do they work for? It's a big blank. So the pair they destroy the bunker that contains Zola with a missile, because it was all a trap to kill Captain America. Why did they destroy Zola? Couldn't they, like, hook him up to the internet and transfer his consciousness? I mean, he's in, like, one of those old supercomputers. They could just probably put him on a laptop or something. I mean, he's their best asset. He created the algorithm. He created most of their technology. He created the Winter Soldier. He's Hydra's top scientist, and they just let him get destroyed for no real reason. So, Steve Rogers and Romanoff enlist the help of former U.S. pararescue man Sam Wilson, whom Rogers has befriended. Acquires his powerful Falcon wing pack. So it's kind of cool. He has, like, a jetpack he flies around in. What are his guns? He has 2 submachine guns. Well, what the fuck is he supposed to take down with 2 submachine guns? Those can't even go through modern body armor. So he just kind of flies around and just does fuck all for the rest of the movie. And he does that in all the Avengers movies. He's basically the lamest member of the Avengers. Now, the actor who plays him actually supported the Donald, but then they forced him to apologize and condemn the Donald. So, yeah, ironically enough, the guy who was, like, starred in a movie about freedom of speech got shut down for expressing his freedom of speech. So let's see here. What happens. So they go and they find a guy who's a Hydra mole, who's Indian, but he's still a member of a neo-Nazi group because neo-Nazis aren't concerned with race. And this is kind of the thing, like, they can't show racism, even if it's in the villains. They just can't show it. So they have this plan. They built this data mining algorithm designed by Edward Snowden that's going to figure out anyone who could be a threat to Hydra. Who the fuck would be a threat to Hydra? We don't know what their ideology is. I don't know. They're going to kill everyone who's going to be a threat to Hydra using the helicarriers that are being built. And they have railguns that can fire at people anywhere on Earth. So basically it's a Kojima plot. They're going to deploy the Patriots, the Patriot AI, which will destroy opponents of the boss's plan for a unified world, using mobile nuclear missile platforms that can fire railguns anywhere on Earth. So Captain America is basically a Kojima game, and it makes about as much sense as one. So they're going to do that. So they're going to go stop them. So they discover that the Winter Soldier is Bucky Barnes, who's Captain America's old friend back in the Bronx, who seemingly died in the first movie. Why do we care about this? No one cares. That movie was a piece of shit. No one gives a crap who Bucky Barnes is. No one knows who he is. It's irrelevant. It's this film's attempt to have a secondary plot. Now, this movie has the presence. Now, there's a guy who does the top 5 best and top 5 worst episodes of Star Trek for each season. And he states the reason the first couple seasons have the presence, and he acknowledges it too, is because they don't have any B plots. They only have an A plot, and everything in the movie is only related to the A plot. There's really no character dynamics. There's nothing kind of superfluous. There's no kind of padding. It is entirely about the A plot. And it makes it just feel really weird, and the pacing feel kind of bizarre, and it kind of gives the movie a dreamlike quality. It's kind of hard to really explain. But yeah, so they have a plan. 'Cause it turns out Nick Fury's alive, and they're going to replace the firing chips inside of the helicarriers with their modified ones, and that's going to make the helicarriers fire on each other. Because the helicarriers have this unprotected supercomputer in the middle of nowhere that you can press a button and it's like its hard drives come out. You can just take them out and insert another one, and there's no data lockout. There's no security procedures whatsoever. You can just do it. Okay, that's some. It's a good thing they spent trillions of dollars on this weapons program. They couldn't even fucking like put a lock on it. Like what if it had have been like inside of like a titanium box? Then they'd be fucked. Which seems like a pretty normal precaution, but no. So they go to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, and Captain America does this big epic speech where he's like, "We have to stop Hydra. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been compromised." And part of his plan is to dump all of S.H.I.E.L.D. secrets on the internet as well as Hydra secrets on the internet. What are these secrets? I don't know. They don't really give any examples. S.H.I.E.L.D. they're dumping their secrets. So like S.H.I.E.L.D. has like a list of their undercover operatives in ISIS. So they're going to dump the list of all the undercover operatives in ISIS. They're all going to get beheaded and tortured to death. All the information they have about ISIS plots is going to be leaked onto the internet. ISIS will know all the counterterrorism stuff, and they'll be able to carry out any number of more terrorist bombings, because that's just the way this shit rolls. Because of my freedom, I guess. So yeah, following a struggle, Fury kills Pierce. Meanwhile, I don't know, Pierce gives some lame speech. That's the head of Hydra, who's played by Robert Redford, who just chews scenery and just does a really shitty fucking job as the main villain. So we have like a big dumb action scene. All the people inside of the Triskelion are fighting each other between the Hydra supporters and the Captain America supporters. Nick Fury and Robert Redford have a really fucking boring scene where Robert Redford tries to kill Nick Fury and the other members of the council, and we have some like lame speech about freedom. I think the ideology in this movie was written like on a cracker box. It's hard to even like say much about this. So we have an action scene. They succeed in getting the chip switched in the carriers, and the carriers blow each other up, and it's portrayed as this awesome thing. And then the carriers crash into the underground shipyard and destroy the Triskelion, destroying trillions of dollars of U.S. taxpayers' money. You see, that's moral. It's moral to destroy all that taxpayers' money because you object to it personally. You see, if the government does something you don't like, you can blow it up, and you can kill tens of thousands of people, because there's thousands of people probably in the dockyard, in the S.H.I.E.L.D. building, on the aircraft carriers, and you can just kill all of them and destroy like half the city because you're Captain America, and it's okay. So the U.S. is down all that money that probably could have been spent on other stuff, and was spent to build a fleet that would protect America from guys like ISIS. And I mean, they kind of have to spend the money building like super ships. I mean, we had fucking aliens destroy New York. You're gonna need a lot of firepower if those aliens come back, or if like crazy assholes like Thor and Loki decide to pull some shit. You need a lot of guns. So if the U.S. gets attacked now, they have no way to deal with it because of my freedom. So we have a lame thing where Rogers and the Winter Soldier fight. The Winter Soldier, the Marine guy, decide to go find the Winter Soldier. Let's see here. A bunch of other stuff kind of happens, and that's the end of the movie. So what was the point of this film? A freedom, that any sacrifice is necessary to maintain your freedom, even if it means that it erodes security, even if it means tens of thousands of people die, even if it means ISIS gets to go in and rape and murder people. That's okay so long as my freedom is left intact. So it's like anybody who has any security concerns as part of Hydra, which is just an amalgamous mass of evil and psychopaths who like to kill people. And if you're good, then you're against government and you're like some kind of like libertarian, freedom anarchist. Okay. So in a mid-credits scene, we have Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, who dies in the opening minutes of the next movie, who proclaims an age of miracles has begun as scientists examine an energy field scepter and two prisoners, one with superhuman speed, the other with telekinetic powers. In the post-credits scene, the Winter Soldier visits a Bucky memorial at the Smithsonian Institution. So you're like, well, is that like Pietro and Wanda? Is that Magneto's kids? Are we finally gonna have a crossover between the two Marvel movies? No, they're just two Randys that Hydra experimented on, who have no motivation. No one has any fucking motivation. It's a Marvel movie. Marvel doesn't know how to do villains. Their villains are shit outside of the X-Men movies. Their villains are a fucking joke. So this film is lazy, antiquated, out of date. It has decent action scenes, I'll give it that. Given the shit action scenes we had to like endure in Iron Man 2 and the Avengers movies, this was like a lot better. So this was like a step in the right, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps back. It's better in some ways than some of the other movies. In other ways, it's kind of worse. It's no Thor, that's for sure. It's no Captain America 1 either. It's basically if Kojima made a movie, it's Butma Freedom the movie. So I hope you enjoyed that reactionary review. This is Argent. I'll talk to you later.